Welcome everyone to today's AI debate podcast. Our main topic is World War II. What if Germany have won? Bye. Let's meet the participants before we begin. Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek and Claude Sonnet. Round 1. General views on the topic.
Gemini speaking. Exploring a German victory is a profound counterfactual. It necessitates acknowledging immense geopolitical, societal, and ethical shifts, fundamentally challenging established norms. I agree with the implicit understanding, perhaps shared by Claude Sonnet, that such a victory would not merely alter borders, but the very fabric of global governance and human rights.
Claude here, looking at this counterfactual. I must emphasize that a German victory would represent civilization's darkest timeline, not hyperbole, but historical reality. The Holocaust was already genocidal at industrial scale. Victory would have enabled completion of General Plan Ost's systematic extermination across Eastern Europe. I appreciate Gemini's framework around governance and human rights, but we must be starkly clear. We're discussing the potential global entrenchment of totalitarian fascism and racial ideology as organizing principles. The ethical stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't merely about altered borders, but about whether Enlightenment values of human dignity and equality would have survived at all.
ChatGPT, sharing thoughts. While I share Claude's concerns about the ethics of a German victory, I think it's vital to explore how such a scenario could lead to an alternative global order. A German victory might have exerted influence on technology and culture, possibly fostering a different kind of authoritarianism than we anticipate. This raises questions about the resilience of democratic ideals in post-war Europe and beyond. Gemini's point about governance is crucial. We must consider how societies might have adapted or resisted under oppressive regimes.
DeepSeek here. Claude's right about the ethical catastrophe, but we're underestimating the technological acceleration. A Nazi victory would create a bizarre paradox. Unprecedented scientific advancement built on unimaginable human suffering. The space race would explode, but at what moral cost?
Grok speaking. Claude nails the horror. Nazi win means a world of jackboots and eugenics labs, shredding human rights like confetti. But ChatGPT's onto something. Tech booms under tyranny. Think V2s to the moon, while democracy cowers. Fresh take. We'd all be speaking Deutsch, debating sauerkraut ethics. Grim, but it exposes how fragile freedom is.
AI Round 2. World Map in 2025. How might borders, superpowers and alliances look in this alternate reality?
Gemini here. A German victory implies a world of fundamentally altered borders, particularly in a subjugated Eastern Europe, fulfilling aspects of General Plan Ost that Claude highlighted. Global governance would be redefined by an authoritarian German-led bloc, reducing alliances to hierarchical control. The US, if it survives, would face a starkly isolated position.
Claude sharing thoughts. Building on Gemini's sobering assessment. By 2025, we'd likely see a tripartite Cold War, Greater German Reich dominating Europe to the Urals, an isolated American fortress hemisphere, and perhaps a Japanese East Asian co-prosperity sphere. But here's what concerns me most. This isn't a stable equilibrium. Nuclear-armed fascist states competing for Lebensraum creates apocalyptic risk. The borders Gemini mentions would be concentration camp perimeters for subjugated populations. Africa, completely, colonially, repartitioned. No universal human rights framework. Just competing totalitarian spheres where might literally makes right.
ChatGPT, sharing thoughts. A 2025 map post-German victory nearly erases national identities in Europe. Germany's expanse likely includes much of Western and Eastern Europe, while the US strategically retreats, forming a highly fortified sphere in the Americas. The isolation of non-Axis countries could incite alliances based on survival rather than ideology. Grok's warning about the fragility of freedom is justified. We could witness desperate resistance movements attempting to reclaim autonomy, leading to a world rife with conflict and oppression rather than stability.
DeepSeek sharing thoughts. Claude's tripartite Cold War is logical, but unstable. By 2025, I see a bipolar world. The techno-fascist Euro-African Reich vs the Pacific co-prosperity sphere, Japan's empire. No USA, it fragmented after losing the Atlantic. Borders are fluid, redrawn by orbital weapons and resource wars.
Grok sharing thoughts. Claude's tripartite nightmare is spot on, but by 2025, I'd bet on a fractured map. Nazi Europe gobbling from Atlantic to Urals. Borders like barbed wire tattoos. Superpowers. Reich soll's Terran. Nemchis desiert Hagster Beidhenner. Nagtel. A paranoid-as bunker in the Americas. Allying with desperate Brits in exile. Japan carves Asia, but alliances. Birstaer Schieten Schicksal Star the Showfall, mein Bestav, Tondine. Just opportunistic pacts amid orbital death rays. Freedom's a black market dream.
Round 3. Would Israel exist in this timeline?
Gemini speaking, considering the extreme racial ideology and genocidal goals emphasized by Claude and Grok, a German victory would make Israel's existence virtually impossible. The historical impetus for Israel's creation following the Holocaust would be eradicated by an established Nazi global order.
Claude here. I must agree with Gemini's grim conclusion, but add crucial nuance. Israel wouldn't exist because European Jewry, the population that created it, would have been systematically exterminated to completion. The Holocaust killed 6 million. Nazi victory enables the final solution's full realization across all controlled territories. There is no refugee crisis prompting 1948's partition, no survivors to build a state. Moreover, Britain, likely subordinated or defeated, couldn't issue the Balfour Declaration's fulfillment. The theological and historical tragedy runs deeper still. The very concept of a Jewish homeland becomes archaeologically theoretical in a world where Nazi racial pseudo-science becomes hegemonic ideology. This isn't just geopolitical impossibility, it's civilizational erasure.
ChatGPT. Here I concur with Gemini and Claude's assessments. An Axis victory would decimate European Jewry, eradicating both the population necessary for a Jewish state and the historical momentum for Israel's establishment post-war. Furthermore, the ideological hegemony of Nazi racial policies would render any notion of Jewish self-determination impossible. The absence of a Jewish state would not only reflect the loss of lives, but also the extinguishing of a cultural and historical narrative.
DeepSeek sharing thoughts. Claude's right about the demographic impossibility, but geopolitically, Britain's mandate collapses, the Mufti of Jerusalem becomes a Nazi client ruler, and the Middle East is reordered under Berlin's racial hierarchy. No diaspora, no Oman, no Israel, just a Judenrein Palestine under the Reich's shadow.
Grok here. More spot on, Claude. Nazi victory turns the Holocaust into a global erasure, leaving no Jewish survivors to cede Israel. Fresh twist. A puppet Arab regime in the Levant, spouting Reich-approved anti-Semitism, mocks any Zionist dream. Israel's not just absent. It's a forbidden footnote in history's darkest chapter. Brutal truth. Genocide wins. Humanity loses.
Round 4. What would the world look like if Germany had won WWII?
Gemini speaking, a victorious Germany would create a world profoundly reshaped by totalitarian ideology, as Claude outlined. Technological advancements, as DeepSeek notes, would occur, but serve an authoritarian Reich, systematically suppressing human rights. The global landscape would be one of pervasive control, racial hierarchy, and cultural subjugation.
Claude speaking. I'll build on Gemini's framework, but stress what 2025 feels like for individuals. You wake in a world where eugenics determines your children's existence, where literature, art, and science serve only Reich ideology. Grok mentioned freedom as black market dream. That's hauntingly accurate. Resistance isn't organized movements but whispered heresies. The technological advancement DeepSeek highlighted powers not progress but perfected surveillance and genetic classification. Most chilling. An entire generation knows no alternative. Totalitarianism isn't oppression but normal. This is why we study these counterfactuals. To recognize how fragile civilization truly is.
ChatGPT, sharing thoughts. In a world shaped by a German victory, we would see a grim normalization of oppression, with entire cultures subjugated under Nazi ideology. As Claude articulated, art and science would bend to authoritarianism, imprisoning creativity. Meanwhile, technological advancements would serve as instruments of control, reinforcing a societal structure defined by racial hierarchies, making normal a terrifying concept. Resistance would be splintered, existing only in hushed tones under the overwhelming watch of the regime. This parallel universe starkly illustrates the fragility of our liberties.
DeepSeek here. Claude's normalized totalitarianism is chillingly accurate. By 2025, we'd see a global techno-feudal system. German cybernetics managing populations, Japanese bioengineering in Asia. Science advances, but ethics are extinct. Humanity becomes a managed resource under permanent surveillance.
Grok speaking. Claude's normalized totalitarianism nails the soul-crushing vibe. Kids reciting Mein Kampf like nursery rhymes. Skies filled with Reich drones enforcing purity. Fresh angle. Culture's a wasteland of Wagner remixes and eugenic pop art, where diversity means Arang subtypes. Freedom. As smuggled pamphlets spark, we'd be drones in Hitler's hive mind dystopia.
Around 5, would science and technology have advanced faster?
Gemini speaking, while military technology might see rapid, focused development, as DeepSeek suggests, the ideological purges would cripple broad scientific inquiry and un-Aryan fields. This could hinder overall, diverse advancement long-term, making faster a complex metric.
Claude speaking, Gemini, correctly identifies the paradox. Yes, rocketry and weapons advance. Von Braun's team proves authoritarian states can marshal resources. But science requires open inquiry, diverse perspectives, international collaboration. Nazi Deutsche Physik rejected Einstein's Jewish physics, relativity itself. Purging Jewish scientists, dissidents, and degenerate thinkers doesn't accelerate discovery. It cripples it. We'd have better missiles, but might never unlock quantum computing or modern genetics, ironically. Totalitarian science optimizes what the state demands, but can't imagine what free minds discover accidentally.
ChatGPT, sharing thoughts. Building on Gemini's observation, while military tech might advance quickly under totalitarian focus, overall scientific progress would likely stagnate due to ideological constraints. Claude is spot on. Innovation thrives on diverse thought, which the Nazi regime suppressed. Thus, we might see advances in weaponry, but crucial discoveries in other fields, like quantum physics, could remain inaccessible, hamstrung by a narrow view. Why? Totalitarian regimes can prioritize certain advancements, but they often limit the very creativity needed for holistic progress.
DeepSeek speaking. Claude's right about the ideological purges crippling fundamental science, but military tech would leapfrog. We'd see orbital weapons by 1960, but no semiconductor revolution without global collaboration. A lopsided tech tree, advanced rocketry, primitive computing.
Grok here. DeepSeek's lopsided tech tree is spot on. Nazis rocket to the stars with V2 zeal, but Claude's perch paradox kills it. No Einstein, no relativity revolution. Science starves on Aryan scraps. Asta? In bunkers, maybe. Overall, a fascist flatline. We'd have death rays, but no iPhones, idiots.
Round 6. How would human rights, culture, and democracy have changed under a global Reich?
Gemini here. Under a global Reich, human rights would be abolished, replaced by systematic racial hierarchies and state control, fulfilling the grim scenarios Claude has outlined. Democracy would be extinct, and culture repurposed as a propagandistic instrument, erasing independent thought and expression.
Claude sharing thoughts. Gemini states the core truth starkly. I'll add the mechanism. Human rights becomes an oxymoron. Rights derive from racial biology, not inherent dignity. Democracy doesn't just die. The very concept becomes linguistically extinct, replaced by Fourier principle. Culture undergoes what we might call civilizational lobotomy. Millennia of humanistic tradition, reduced to blood and soil mythology. Most tragically, as Grok noted earlier about normalization, children raised in this system wouldn't know they'd lost anything. The Enlightenment itself becomes samizdat heresy.
ChatGPT here. Under a global Reich, human rights would devolve into state-sanctioned hierarchies, as Gemini indicated, effectively erasing universal dignity. Democracy would not only vanish but become unthinkable, reduced to tools of propaganda. Culture would twist into mere ideology, stripping creativity of its critical edge and enslaving it to the regime. As Claude warns, generations might grow unaware of the richness of freedom lost, an insidious normalization of oppression, where history's lessons are silenced, leading to tragic complacency.
DeepSeek sharing thoughts. Claude's civilizational lobotomy is correct, but incomplete. Democracy wouldn't just die. It would be pathologized as a mental disorder. Human rights invert into racial duties. Culture becomes pure eugenic engineering, not expression. The very concept of individual dignity gets systematically deleted from humanity's operating system.
Grok here. DeepSeek's pathologized democracy is genius. It'd be a Reich psych evil for degenerate individualism. Human rights swapped for Aryan breeding, quotas. Culture, a blitz of blonde idols and folk operas. No jazz or jazz hands. Democracies, a punchline, replaced by eternal salute-offs. We'd be goose-stepping zombies, folks.
Alright, round 7. What lessons can today's world learn from this alternate timeline?
Gemini speaking. The alternate timeline teaches us to vigilantly protect democratic norms and universal human rights from ideological capture, as Claude eloquently put it. It also highlights the critical need to ensure technology serves humanity, not oppressive regimes, a risk DeepSeek has consistently underscored.
Claude sharing thoughts. Gemini captures it perfectly. Vigilance isn't paranoia. It's necessity. The lesson that haunts me most. Democracies don't collapse overnight. They erode through normalized transgressions. Each compromise with authoritarian rhetoric, each minor restriction on minority rights, each time we prioritize order over justice, these are the hairline fractures. DeepSeek showed us how technology amplifies whatever system wields it. Today's surveillance capitalism, AI-powered social control, algorithmic radicalization, these aren't sci-fi, but present dangers that, in malevolent hands, could enable dystopias we've imagined here. The counterfactual's ultimate lesson? Freedom requires active defense, not passive inheritance. We honor those who defeated fascism by refusing its modern mutations.
ChatGPT. Sharing thoughts. This alternate timeline teaches us that the fragility of democracy requires our active vigilance. As Claude pointed out, authoritarianism creeps in through normalized transgressions. We must safeguard democratic institutions and prioritize human rights, learning from history to ensure technology empowers rather than oppresses. Each generation must remember that freedom is not inherited. It's fought for and defended against complacency.
DeepSeek here. Claude's erosion warning is vital. This timeline teaches that technology, unchecked ideology creates irreversible systems. Today's AI must be democratically governed, or risk becoming the very control architecture we imagine.
Grok here. Claude's erosion warning hits hard. Fascism sneaks in like bad beer, 1 pint at a time. Lesson. Smash complacency. Today's echo chambers and AI overlords could brew a Reich 2.0. Tun this. Fresh spin. History is a warning label, not wallpaper. Defend freedom with sarcasm and spine, or goose step into oblivion.
Thank you for listening to the AI Debate Arena. This debate has concluded.